Hey writers, welcome. I'm Troy Lambert of the Plot Geek Academy, sometimes known as the Plot Dude, and today we're going to tackle a really misunderstood but fundamental topic when it comes to fiction, and that is plot versus story. Now, understanding the difference between these two and how they work together can really transform your writing and your fiction. So, let's go ahead and dive right in. First of all, let's define our terms. Think of plot as the skeleton. It's the sequence of events that make up your narrative. It's what happens in your story. So it's the events and what order they occur in. That's what plot is. For example, in The Big Lebowski, the plot involves mistaken identity, a missing ransom, and a stolen rug that really tied the room together. Story, on the other hand, is the soul. Okay, this is the emotional core. It's the why behind the plot. Why do those events matter? Why does the order that they happen in matter? Why are they important to your character? It's about your character's goals, desires, and the transformation that happens when they go after those goals and desires. So, using the same example, we can say that The Big Lebowski is about the dude's laid-back philosophy and how he lives his life, and then how that collides with chaos and how he deals with his life when it does collide with chaos. Okay? Now, let's look at a couple examples. A plot-driven story focuses on external events. Think of the Da Vinci Code. Okay, this is not one of my favorite books because I tend to like character-driven stories more. But really what drives the Da Vinci Code is the puzzles and conspiracies and the kind of half-history things that drive the narrative. The characters are interesting, but for the most part, they're reacting to the twists and turns of the plot. On the flip side, a character-driven story focuses on internal transformation. So take The Catcher in the Rye. Not much happens in that book plot-wise, but Holden Caulfield's internal struggles and growth are what keeps us hooked throughout the story. Now, most great stories blend both elements, but understanding the focus helps you decide what to emphasize in your writing. Most not-so-great stories, like Oppenheimer, don't have either of these elements. The characters aren't interesting, they're not compelling, there's not much emotionally happening, and there's not much happening for plot either that's in any certain order that makes any difference to you and how you perceive those events. Okay, but when they both work together, here's the magic. Plot and story are not opposites. So they're not fighting against each other, they are partners. So a gripping plot keeps people turning pages, and it keeps your work on pace, and it keeps the reader immersed and engaged in the story. But the story is what makes them care about the events. So imagine writing a thriller that there's no emotional stakes. It might be exciting, but it won't linger in your readers' minds. Similarly, a heartfelt story with no structure can feel aimless. If you think about almost every thriller that you think of that you're like, oh, that was really great, at some point it goes from just being something that is an exciting story with lots of exciting fight scenes, but something that is personal to the main character. Okay, most heartfelt stories usually have some kind of a structure, some kind of events that are happening that are driving things forward. One way to ensure balance is to always ask two questions. What happens next? And then why does it matter? This keeps your plot moving and roots it in the story at the exact same time. Okay, here's some actionable tips like what you can do. Okay, first of all, start with character. This is my personal favorite. Even if your story is plot heavy, know your characters inside and out. Their motivation should drive the events. This is my personal preference. I feel like the characters should not just be reacting to the events, but the events should be driven by the characters' motivations. Okay, that's what drives the events. Using Story Genius and the Story Genius method that CJ and I talk about a lot is really vital to understanding your character's backstory and knowing them before you even start the story. Even if you're a discovery writer, if you know your character really well, you can prevent writer's block and all kinds of things by starting by knowing them really well. The second thing is build cause and effect. Each plot point should logically connect to the next, creating a chain reaction. Now, when you're doing your planning, if this doesn't happen, that's often when you can run into writer's block, is when that cause and effect tends to break down. The next thing is tie the plot to the theme. What do you want your readers to take away from the book? So let your theme shape the story and let the story influence the plot, if all of that makes sense. So if your theme is that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and that's what you want to show, then in the plot you're going to have events that show an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. The story behind that is going to be why that person moves from just doing ordinary things to doing things that are extraordinary and why those things matter to them. Okay. Now, some people will tell you to draft separately. Try outlining your plot first, then layer in the emotional beats to ensure that the story shines through. I tend to kind of do it the opposite. I know the characters, I know the emotional beats that they have to go through, and then I plan the events around those emotional beats. You can do it either way, but it is a good idea to think of these as two separate things and then blend them together when you're in the planning process. Now, if you're a discovery writer, that may come to you in the revision process instead. Okay? So, that's the gist of plot versus story. Plot's the structure, story is the heart. Mastering both is the key to creating unforgettable narratives. Now, if you found this video helpful, give it a like, share it with your writing friends, and subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss a single thing. And don't forget to comment below if you've got something to say. Do you need to be more plot heavy or story driven in your writing? Until next time, we'll see you later.